Seven Sticks, The Secrets of the Millennium's Seven by Hatem Giame, read by the author. Gratitude's Tale. Once there was a maiden who had the ill fortune of being married to a lazy and abusive husband. At the beginning of the relationship, when he was courting her, he had made all types of promises of a life of beauty and togetherness, but he only delivered a life of drudgery and unhappiness. Once they were married, he spent all his time drinking and gambling with his friends, and eventually went through all of their money. He refused to work or pursue anything productive, and now they lived in a one-room shack. Any earnings he brought to the house were meager leftovers after he repaid his debts and went drinking. To make sure that they had enough food to eat, she would spend her afternoons down at the sea fishing. One day while she was fishing, she had the fortune of catching 3 small fish. Although they would not provide a lot of meat, she was grateful for the little she had. She decided to throw her line in for one more attempt of catching something a little bit more substantial before she returned to the house. She cast her line and waited, and just as she was about to pull it in, she felt a strong tug on the line. She started to pull the line in, and lo and behold, she caught the biggest fish of her fishing career. As she lifted the fish up and out of the water, she looked at it and said to herself aloud, "My, what a beautiful meal you will make. I bet you will taste good." Then she heard a voice reply, "No, I won't." The young maiden looked around her to see if someone else happened to be on the rocks behind her playing a joke, but she was by all alone. To combat the fear, she spoke aloud, looking at the fish. "I must be losing my mind, fish, because I thought I heard you speak." It fell silent for a moment. Then she heard a voice come from the fish again. "I did speak, and once again I tell you that I will not taste good." Shocked, she continued holding the fish, not knowing whether to throw it in the sea or run with this oddity to the house. Then the fish spoke again. "Why are you so silent, girl?" the fish demanded. I never seen a talking fish." The fish, laughing, responded, "Well, girl, we got something in common. I never saw a talking fish either." The fish began laughing even harder and flapping his tail around. The young maiden turned the fish so she could look it in the face. The fish continued to wiggle and laugh, and the maiden held him tightly by his gills. "You are pretty happy for something that is about to be cooked and ate." The fish, still laughing and moving around, responded, "I am not happy. Actually, I am sad, but you are tickling me with your fingers in my gills." The fish continued laughing, and the girl joined in with him. "Young lady, I would appreciate it greatly if you returned me to the water." Laughing with the fish and removing her fingers from his gills so that she could stop tickling him. "Why should I return you to the water?" The fish, looking her directly in her eyes and smiling. "What if I told you I was a prince and that I was cursed by Neb, and I have to serve out a determined amount of time in the sea before I was released, or I will be released from this curse? Then would you let me go?" The young maiden listened and thought about the fish's question. "If that was the case, I think I would have to let you go." The fish started laughing and smiled at the young lady and responded, "Well, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So you can put me back in the water." The maiden continued holding the fish, trying to process what was going on. "I'm not going to let you go that easy, fish. Tell me your story." The fish, still wiggling in her hands. "My dear, you are not here for my story. I am here to help you with your story." The girl, not understanding what the fish meant, looked closely at the fish, but he started making funny faces at her. "Dear fish, whatever do you mean?" The fish, smiling at her once again and then giving her a sly look. "Put me back in the water and I will explain." The young lady looked at the fish as if she was insulted. "Fish, if I put you back in the water, you will just swim away." "That is true, but I will forever be grateful to you." The maiden began to weigh the pros and cons of releasing the fish and came to the conclusion that the right thing to do was to release him to the sea. She wasn't sure whether or not he was a prince or just a magic fish, but either way, she felt he was an intelligent living being like herself and deserved to live. She got down on her knees and put the fish back in the sea. After swimming around her hands, the fish swam into deeper waters and disappeared in the beautiful ocean. The maiden rose from the ground, grabbed her 3 small fish, and just as she was about to head home, the talking fish stuck his head out the water. "Young maiden, I would like to thank you for your kindness. And know because you have released me, your story has now truly began. I will see you soon." Before the maiden could respond, he returned back to the sea and disappeared. The maiden turned around and headed for home. She went to a regular trail and walked to her humble home. When the maiden walked into her house, her husband was waiting for her with complaints. First, he talked about how little her house was and how much more he deserved from life. He complained about her housekeeping skills and also bemoaned the fact that they had no children. The maiden quietly endured his whining and prepared their meal for the night. She gave her husband the 2 biggest fish, and she ate what meat she could get off the small one. Her husband then began to complain about the meal as if he had contributed to it. Trying to lighten the mood, the young maiden told her husband about the fish that she had released. In anger, the husband lashed out with angry words. "Wait a minute, woman. Are you telling me that you released a magic fish?" Knowing that he disapproved, she grew quieter than she already had been. "You caught a magic fish and then released it? Of all the dumb things I've ever heard in my life, that has got to be the dumbest. Everyone knows that you don't release magic fish." The wife attempted to explain why she did it, but before she could get half of the story or half the sentence out about the fish being an intelligent living being, he yelled, "Shut your mouth!" Looking at her with violence in his eyes and balling his fist in anger. "That fish outsmarted you, but I'm going to help you do the right thing." The wife taking offense and deciding to stand up for herself. "I did do the right thing." "Shut your mouth. They are going to talk. There you go talking when you should be listening." Pausing to make sure he had her undivided attention. "You are going to go down to the sea, to the exact spot you were standing in, and you are going to call that fish. He will come because he owes you a favor. You are to tell him that you want a house. Yes, a house." "Husband, I don't think that this fish had," interrupting before she could get the rest of her words out. "Once again, you interrupt me when I'm talking and are thinking when you should be listening," placing his index finger on the side of her head and then talking very slowly so she could hear him and most importantly feel his anger. "You are going to go down to the sea right now and do what I say, or I will make your life miserable." Sensing that it was useless trying to argue with her husband, she left to go to the sea. When she arrived at the sea, she remembered why she did not mind going fishing every day. The sea always calmed her down and made her feel that everything was going to be all right. She closed her eyes and let the calm wind hit her face. She opened her eyes and allowed them to take in the beauty of the clear blue water. She closed her eyes once again and just allowed the peace to fill her, and she sung out, "Fish, oh fish that live in the sea, please, oh please come on to me. My man, he has a wish, so please come help me, oh magic fish." As soon as she finished singing, the fish stuck his head up out of the water. "Beautiful maiden, how can I be of service to you?" Shocked by how quickly he came to her, and also by the fact that he called her beautiful, she was at a loss for words. "Maiden, did you call me?" "Yes, I did," she said. The fish then moved a little closer to the stones that she stood on. How can I help you? Well, fish, I'm sorry to call you, but my husband is upset that I released you and has ordered me to come down here and ask you for a wish. The fish listened to her and went under the water. At first the maiden thought the fish had left, but he popped back up. Maiden, you have a kind heart, and you also did me a great service, but you do not have to lie to me. Your husband, as you call him, threatened you and forced you here. I will grant you whatever wish you ask of me, but know that it will not bring you happiness. The maiden listened to the fish, and when he completed his statement, she made a wish. Fish, my husband wants a bigger house. The fish started laughing. Is that all? The maiden shook her head. Yes, I will take care of it. Now return home and I will see you soon. With his last statement, the fish busted out laughing again and disappeared in the water. The maiden looked at the sea, and the water was no longer as clear as it was before. She started her journey home and took her regular route, but when she got to the road that led to her house, she noticed that where her shack had stood, now stood a beautiful house with a fence around it. As she got closer to the house, she could see a nice-sized garden in the backyard. Walking around and through the rows of the garden were chickens and goats. When she approached the porch, she could not believe how big it was. She could see that her last house could fit on the porch alone. When she walked in the house, she could not believe her eyes. The house had 5 bedrooms and a kitchen stocked with food. Her husband came down the stairs to where she was standing. See, I told you the fish would grant your wish. Then they went around the house, learning where everything was before they went to bed. Now everything went well for a few weeks. Every day the young maid took care of the house and garden. The husband began spending less time tending the garden, more time tending the bars and gambling houses. Eventually the husband became dissatisfied with what he had and started complaining. One night during dinner, he started arguing at his wife for not having the sense to ask for more than just a house. Wife, what good is a house without money and power? Yes, we have this land and this house and the garden, but what is that compared to all the things we could have? The wife began to feel uncomfortable because her husband was looking at a gift horse in the mouth. He had done nothing to have what they was blessed with, but yet he was complaining. Husband, do you think that it is wise to? Before she was able to complete her sentence, he started yelling, cutting her off. Shut your mouth. You see, there you go once again, give me advice when I have not asked for any. Now, this is what I want from you. Pausing and looking at her very intensely. You are going to go down to the sea and tell that fish that I want to be a king. The maiden was shocked. King? You want to be king? She started giggling. Husband, there's already a king and plus, I don't think that the fish has that type of power. Looking very sternly and talking very loudly. Wife, I don't care if there is a king. You are going to get up right now and go down to the sea and get that fish to make me king. By the time he had finished his statement, he was in the maiden's face. If you do not do as I tell you, I will make your life miserable. For her own safety, she ran out the door and headed for the sea. She walked thinking that this was not the right thing to do. Her husband should be happy with what the fish has already given them, and she approached the sea. As she approached the sea, she could see that the water was no longer clear. As a matter of fact, it had a bad smell. The water was no longer gentle. It crashed up against the rocks, getting her shoes wet. She began her song. Fish, oh fish that lives in the sea, please, oh please, come on to me. My man, he has a wish, so please come help me, oh magic fish. Welcome back, my beautiful maiden. I expected you back, but not this soon. Tell me, What is it that your master wishes? At first, flattered by the fish compliment, but then upset by his insulting reference. My master, who you speak of? The fish began laughing and swimming backwards. He stops and darts towards the rock, stopping right in front of her. I am talking about the ungrateful, undeserving man that you call your husband. He is why you are here, right? The maiden drops her head. Young maiden, what is it that he wishes? For you appear to have no voice. Tears welling up in her eyes from the shame and truth in the words of the fish. He now wants to be king, she said, fighting back the tears. Immediately the fish started laughing and splashing in the water. Young maiden, go home. I will take care of it. The fish started sinking into the water, which was now brown and smelly. As the maiden began walking away, the fish jumped high in the air, yelling, I will see you soon. Then he hit the water with a loud splash. The maiden did not even turn around because now tears were flowing from her eyes and she knew that the fish was right. She took a regular route home, but ran into a wall that was so high she couldn't climb over it. She figured that she must have taken a wrong turn, but she followed the wall around and came upon a gate with two guards who saluted her as she approached them. They welcomed her and showed her through the gate and put her in a carriage that took her to the large palace. She was amazed at the sight. The palace sat on a plot of land that was bigger than the city she came from. As she walked up the stairs to the front porch, she could see that the house that they had last time could easily fit onto the porch. She walked up to the door, and they were opened for her by some servants. The palace was alive with people dusting and arranging furniture. She walked by a group of important men that looked like they were waiting for a meeting with someone. As she walked by them, they all bowed their heads. She was led to the throne room, and she walked up toward the throne, and sitting on the throne was her husband. He looked down at her and smiled. Then he yelled, My wife, didn't I tell you that fish would be able to fulfill my wish? Looking at her husband, she yelled, My husband, are you satisfied now? He stood up with his crown and scepter in his hand and shouted back, We shall see. The wife took her leave and went and found a nice room to live in. She dodged her husband for a week and attempted to enjoy all the luxuries that the fish had provided for them. It was another week before her husband sent for her to report to the throne room. When she got there, his guards closed the door behind her. The husband stood up and immediately began with his complaints. Wife, although a king is powerful, there's something more powerful, and I need your help to achieve it. She listened and attempted to say nothing, for she knew that he would do nothing but start yelling, Wife, I want to be emperor, and only you can make that happen. Being no longer able to hold her tongue, Husband, we have been blessed twice. Why do you need to be emperor? Why can't you just enjoy being king? The husband, looking down on his wife, signals the two guards who were at the door, and they ran up behind the maid. They stood so close to her that she was uncomfortable. My wife, you are going to go down to the sea and wish me into an emperor. If not, I will have these men take you out and execute you. I refuse to argue with you. And either you will do what you are told like the rest of my subjects, or you can have your head chopped off. At that moment, the guards grabbed the maiden and forced her to the door, and from there she was escorted to the great gate and thrown out. She got up and ran down to the sea with tears in her eyes, but when she got there, she could not recognize it. The sea was polluted. It smelled bad, and the water was forming rough waves and splashing on the beach. She had to stand at a safe distance and sing her song. Fish, oh fish that lives in the sea, please, oh please come on to me. My man, he has a wish, so please come help me, oh magic fish. The sea was pounding the shore. The smell was horrible, but as soon as the fish stuck his head out the water, it all stopped. What does he want now? With tears in her eyes, she shouted, Now he wants to be emperor. The fish looked at the maiden and seeing that she was in bad shape and had been abused by the king and his servants, he took his fin and started rubbing his fish head from frustration. Young maiden, I'm going to give you and the world a favor. I am not going to make him an emperor. He not only won't be an emperor, he will no longer be a king. He will no longer be wealthy, and he will no longer have a big house. When you return to your home, you will return to a shack. But you, my dear, have a choice. You can either stay there with him and live a life of misery with someone who has no gratitude, or you can stand up for yourself and begin living your life. When you leave this time, this may be the last time you see me. Go in peace, young maiden. As the fish sunk back into the water began to return to its original color. The maiden walked home and did not find a palace, wall, mansion, house, fence, goats, chickens, or a garden. All she found was the original shack. When she walked in, her husband was sitting on a stool crying like a baby. The maiden did not say a word. She just went in, grabbed the little bit she owned, and left. It is said that the man spent the rest of his miserable life in that shack. But as for the maiden, some say that she went to a faraway land and lived a full life. Some even say that she went back to the sea and sung for the fish and either wished him to human form or had herself turned into a fish. But whichever path she chose, we know that she lived a good life. After finishing her tale, Gratitude sat back in her chair and then looked at her father, who began clapping his hands. My dear, that was a beautiful rendition of that story. I had forgot that I had shared that one with you. I am glad that you have found a way to make use of it. The father sat forward in his chair and looked around the table and smiled. I can't wait to hear the next tale. Which story will you share with us, Purpose? Purpose stood up and addressed the group. It is good to be here amongst family once again. Life is so short and unpredictable. It is good to be here. After sitting through these stories and remembering all the times that we had as young children sitting through our father's tales, for us to have drifted so far from each other is wrong. I agree with respect. There's a force working against us. And after listening to Gratitude's story, it became clear to me. We can all say that we are acting the way we are because of tradition. I, for one, am no longer willing to pay the price of this tradition. I will tell my story, not to compete, but because it makes my father happy. But I want it to be known now that I no longer wish to receive my father's wealth, if it means that I will have to go for years before I see my siblings again. I have had many friends in my life, but none to have equaled the joy that I received growing up with the people in this room. Father, the story I will share is, I believe, one of your favorites, because I remember you telling it to us, and anyone who would listen over and over again. And like the protagonist of this tale, our family is acting out of character. That is the end of Gratitude's tale. The book is 7 Sticks, The Secrets of Millennium 7, written by Hatem Giami, read by the author. The book will be available soon for purchase on my website as well as in my Amazon store, and it also will be available in a digital format at kdp.com, but that'll be soon. So with that, this is Brother Hatem, and I'm saying thank you for listening. Peace.